Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast, where we take a deep dive into what it takes to be battle ready in your lifestyle so that you can go to war on your life and the marketplace and win.
All right, welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast. Today I have on Chris Wallace, the co-founder and president of Interview, a marketing consulting firm that helps companies effectively transfer their brand strategy into customer-facing employees and partners. So welcome on, Chris.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit about your company, what you guys are up to, where you came from, all that stuff.
Sure. So Interview Group is just about 2 years old, almost exactly 2 years old. And but my partners and I had worked together and started consulting practices in the past together. And Interview Group really is sort of the culmination of years of experience and hopefully a little bit of wisdom that comes along with it. But basically what we do is, we work with big brands, but we don't create the brands. We make sure that we can take the brand story and the key messages that the brand wants to communicate, and we make sure that the people inside the company are both aware of those messages and can tell those stories consistently. So think of it as we don't market to the customer, we market to the people who talk to the customer.
Awesome. And how do you guys do that? Where did that idea come from that you saw this need?
So the idea came from many years of working with big organizations and their sales teams. And really what we found was so much of the organizations really struggled with this idea of, we know our people can perform better. We know that they can sell more. We know that they can be more effective, more efficient. But the ways that they were going about tackling that were really hard. They were hard to scale. They were hard to implement effectively. Training programs and coaching programs and things like that, they're really hard to scale. And we looked at it and we said, and a lot of them are skills-based. It was always focusing on the skills. It was, well, they don't have the skills to do this. We need to teach them how to better discovery questions, or we need to teach them better closing techniques. The reality was they were trying to focus on skills, but the problem was not that people didn't have the skills. They just didn't have the belief. They just didn't believe in the products that they were talking about. They weren't really compelled to deliver the message in an interesting, in a compelling way. So what we looked at was, how can we take this idea of, we agree people can be better, they can perform better, but how can we come at this from a different angle so that the people who are answering the phones or standing in a retail store are really excited and energized to talk about their brand?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it seems like when you're smaller, it's easy to communicate basically what you're talking about, the why and the purpose behind what you're doing. But once you get to large organizations, there's a big disconnect there.
So you'd be surprised at how similar the challenges are between the large organizations and the small.
Oh, wow.
So I'll elaborate. A big part of what we do as an organization, really where we start our work, our projects with our clients, is really helping them understand their brand stands for something, and they have their brand, and we don't go in and change their brand at all. We want to just understand their brand, but more importantly, we want to translate what their brand promise is into actions and behaviors. I had a CMO last week of a well-known national organization. CMO said to me last week, so you're talking about getting them to act the brand. And I loved that phrase, act the brand. And I said, you couldn't come up with a better way to describe what we do. But if they're going to act the brand, you have to understand what that looks like. What are the actions that would reflect who you are as a brand, the promise that you're making to customers? And most organizations, whether they're small or big, they don't take the time to do that translation process. They don't take the time to say, okay, who plays what role in communicating our brand? How can they be acting in a way that's consistent with the brand? And really doing that definition. So when it comes time to go to market, everybody knows what's expected of them. Everybody knows their role. That's a big part of what we do. But big organizations and smaller organizations alike struggle with that.
Awesome. And what does that look like, in actual practice? Like, how do you get that done? So maybe someone that's listening can have a takeaway, is it explain that. Is it through, materials? Is it through training programs? How does that happen?
Yeah. So, the philosophy we have with it is most organizations, the question I get asked most frequently is, why do companies struggle with this? And the answer to it is they look at it as, well, if we just give them more information, the information's the problem. They don't have enough information. They're not quote unquote trained enough, or they don't have the right materials. And the reality is, what we find is information does one thing. It just gets you to a point of knowledge. It gets you to a point of knowing what's happening. It doesn't get you to the point where you actually believe in it, right? So we look at it as, what we do is we pick up where knowledge leaves off, and we're really trying to drive people to believe. And a big way that we do that is the way that you help drive that engagement and drive that belief is we engage the frontline teams in the process. We ask them, here's what your brand stands for. How are you demonstrating that every day? And we gather a lot of feedback from the front lines. We really build sort of this two-way dialogue with the people at the front lines. Most organizations just push stuff downhill. We're working with it in a two-way dialogue, learning from them what the behaviors look like, and really helping scale those throughout the organization.
Yeah, I mean, because there's probably a disconnect between the front line and the higher ups, because maybe they haven't lived it in a while. So.
Well, I can say this: we did some research. We did a research study with a consumer insights company and technology company called Focus Vision. They're a big, market research and online platform. And we did a study with 250 marketing professionals. 2/3 of those professionals, 66%, told us that they believe that their message is falling apart from the time it leaves their office to the time it makes its way through their organization. So, each successive conversation, a little bit more of the story is getting diluted on down through the line. By the time it gets to the customer, who knows what they're hearing? Or who knows what that experience looks like? So we really want to get people aligned around a consistent view of it. But that view of it cannot just be what comes from corporate. The view has to be based in reality, and reality is what's happening out in the trenches.
Got it. And then is this what you would call brand dilution?
Yeah, that's really the dilution. Really, as that story gets broken apart, what the customer hears sounds a lot different than the ad that they saw. You see a car ad, and there's the prestige around it, and there's the styling, and there's the performance. And you get all excited about it, and you show up in the auto dealership, and the experience you have with the person there, it feels nothing like what the brand is trying to be. And to separate your product and your experience the way that most organizations do really drives what you just referred to, what we call that dilution. And we haven't found an organization yet that really does this. There's organizations that are very good at it. You've got the Chick-fil-A's of the world, you've got the Southwests of the world, and things like that. But most brands are really trying to struggle to get that consistency.
Yeah, and then what makes the difference? Like, what makes the Southwest and the Chick-fil-A's continue on down? Like, what are they doing? And that you're seeing differences that are people.
Well, I mean, I can share an example from a brand that we know. Up in Canada, the largest cable and wireless provider in Canada is Rogers. People might know the Rogers Center, the baseball stadium up there. They're a huge brand in Canada. They're a big brand in North America, and their approach to doing this is they are working with their teams to be gathering feedback really on an almost constant basis. Weekly, they are gathering input from their people on the front lines, and they are using that as business intelligence. And I know that that's a big kind of buzz phrase, but I truly believe that what they're doing is gathering business intelligence that helps them be, better brand themselves externally to customers, but better support those internal teams. So I think that the one common characteristic of the brands that are doing it well is they listen to their people and they involve their people. And again, you don't need to be a large brand to take advantage of that tip. Listening to what your people are experiencing and aligning yourself to again, reality, knowing what's actually happening, not just having it be something you cook up in your head or in a marketing suite at corporate.
Yeah, for sure. And what positive ROIs have you seen by implementing these strategies working with your customers?
We've seen people increase their conversion rate by 33%. We've seen, and big brands, I mean, consumer brands who take a lot of phone calls and they increase their conversion rate of their core products by 33%. We've seen people be able to engage their sales force. We work with a lot with organizations that are in the manufacturing space where they have dealers and things like that. We've seen companies improve their kind of their dealer loyalty program and the support that they see through their dealer loyalty programs by 24%. We've seen, I mean, I could continue, keep throwing out numbers, but really what we're talking about here is it's conversions. It's getting more for the same level of effort. How can you get your story to the point? How can you tell your brand story in a consistent way that is demonstrating value, that is resonating with your customer, and the same level of effort is yielding you more? That's where we really see the ROI is they invest money with us to be able to do that, but we're a drop in the bucket compared to what they typically get back because most of our clients are big companies. So it's conversions. It's more, you and I talked, before the episode about kind of optimizing and being more efficient. It's efficiency. It's using your words in a way that's going to yield you a better result than what you were getting before.
Yeah. I mean, you look at anything, right? Any process, any effort to get something done. And, there's always ways to tweak it to increase that efficiency and effectiveness, inside of there. So, a lot of times people want to go off and try new strategies without just improving what they currently have,
Execution strategy is not the challenge that we see in most organizations. The strategy folks are the best and the brightest. And they really are coming up with great strategies, but implementation is where things fall down. And one of the really interesting statistics that we got out of the study we did with Focus Vision was 81% of the marketers that we surveyed, they told us that the success of their job, how they are judged in their role, 81% said it's directly tied to what their frontline people do. So if you are a marketer in a big brand and you have people that work at a front desk, people who answer phones, people who work behind a retail counter, 81% of marketers are saying that person's performance is critical to how they are judged in their role in marketing. So you can't separate the success of marketers from the success of the people in those marketing channels. And most organizations are starting to realize that they need to increase the link between those two functions.
Yeah. So how would you actually measure this or figure out if your brand, your internal brand message your story is being disconnected?
So what we did, my partners and I, when we started interview, actually before we even started interview, we really started thinking about where we saw a gap in the market and what the market really needed. And it was just what you just asked about. It is a way to really measure where the breakdown is happening, where that dilution is happening. Most organizations know that there's an issue, but the challenge is they don't know how to pinpoint it. So what do? They just push out a bunch more training and they send out a new one sheet. So we developed a process called the brand transfer score. And it's a combination of a market research process, an online platform where we gather the information. And it's built on the same types of principles that most market research companies go out and gather customer data. So they want to know what the customer thinks of a new product or a brand message or something like that. They come back to the marketers and they say, here's what the people think, and here's what we recommend you do. So what we do is we took that same mechanic, we optimized it for the internal audience is a little bit different, but we go to the people who work for your company, employees, frontline, really whomever, anybody inside your company, and we gather their perspective on your brand or your product or whatever key aspect of your brand you're focused on. And we come back to you and we can say, you told us that your product does this. They think the product does that. And your perspective and their perspective is 34% misaligned, or it's 22% misaligned. And we know why it's misaligned, not just that it's misaligned, but what aspect of that story is causing the breakdown. Maybe they're not convinced that it's a reliable product, or maybe they don't like the warranty, or whatever the case may be. We can come back to you and tell you where that fallout is happening. Just like with a market researcher, that gives us the tools to be able to say, if you want to move that person's perception, here's the messaging we would recommend.
That's awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, like I've always envisioned that once you start developing a team, you as a leader, now the customer is now your employees, is your team. And you've got to market and sell them on the vision and what you're trying to accomplish so that they can go and sell the customer on what you're trying to accomplish. And it's just all integrated because they're going to be the ones leading the customer at the end of the day.
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they asked me, what's your bold idea? What's the bold concept that you have that people need to take notice of? And I said, I don't even know that it's all that bold, but I know it's where kind of where the magic happens. And Anthony, what you just described, it is when you stop looking at these frontline teams, these employees, as part of your operational chain, and you start looking at them like customers, and you focus on selling to them. That's when it's just a shift in mindset is all that it is. Frankly, it's not any more expensive to do it the way that we do it. It's probably actually a lot less cheaper, and the results are a lot better, but it's just that shift in mindset from these people are not cogs in the machine. They truly are. If we can convince them of how great this is, because we know it's great. We developed it to be great. We know our customers like it. If our people love it too, and they love the brand, they're going to speak about it in a much more compelling way, much more convincing way. And that's where the results really start to break through.
Yeah. I mean, it's this different shift in leadership. I mean, I've been a part of different organizations, sports teams, and, being inside running my own organizations and being a part of other people's organizations, and the difference of the leadership and connecting the vision and what we're trying to accomplish and the way to do it versus a lot of people try to go transactionally, which is very a managerial style of leadership. We're trying to get things done versus a leadership style where I know one of the leaders that I really resonated with was he'd come in before everything and say, hey, we have 4 keys to victory and this is what it is. And it's like, there wasn't a how-to, it's just, here's where you're going and here's how we're going to do it. And the intensity that it's delivered, that's the salesmanship of that internal marketing and developing the internal culture.
That's really well said, Anthony. Honestly, that touches on a lot of the ways that we go about doing what we do. We take the brand and we break it down into really core components, right? You mentioned four keys to success. With a brand, we're typically going to come up with 3 or 4 different pillars, typically not any more than that. And they serve as guideposts for people. It's not a script. We don't script. We don't believe in scripting. It's inauthentic, doesn't drive a good customer experience. We believe in giving people guardrails, reinforcing those guardrails, and really encouraging and forcing them to think critically about how to be as effective as they possibly can, with each one of those pillars and we're within those guardrails. And that critical thought is where we really see amazing things happen. They come up with great ideas. They come up with really innovative ways to serve their customers. But without that reinforcement of what those brand pillars are and those brand guidelines, they don't really have a compass, so to speak, of how to navigate it. But that gives them a compass, and it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, communication is key. I'm actually reading a book talking about a little bit about what you're doing right now, developing the brand story and all that stuff. So, and it's interesting. So where are you guys going right now? What do you guys have up to? What initiatives you going? Just we're
moving 120 miles an hour, as most entrepreneurs are. We have a lot going right now. We have, in terms of, some of the initiatives that are, I would say, sort of outward facing, we're going to be doing part 2 of the study that we did with Focus Vision earlier this year. And now we studied the executives, and I think I can say this. I don't think my partners at Focus Vision would have a problem with it, but we'll formally announce it. But we are going to take what we learned from the executive perspective from marketers, and we're going to turn the tables, and we're going to go out and gather feedback from the people at the front lines. So we're going to find out for people that are out there working hourly jobs in restaurants or in hotels or in call centers or retail stores, whatever it is, how do they feel about their brand? What connection do they have to their brand? How is their organization equipping them to be stewards of that brand? And really kind of learning their perspective. So we'll have the view from the ivory tower, and we'll have the view from the front line. So part 2 of that will come out in 2020. So we're working on that, which we're really excited about. And beyond that, we have our own podcast that we're looking to build out. We've had several episodes this year when we launched it, and podcast will be a big focus for us. It's called Brand Interactions, INNER, like our brand, Interactions. And we bring on big brand marketers and representatives to talk about what they do inside their own organizations to get people to like their brand, get people to love it. It's so much different when somebody loves their brand. You can tell it, and it makes a difference in that interaction. So we want to hear their story.
Yeah. Awesome. And so since you guys were, what you guys are an entrepreneur organization, what have you, what pitfalls, what lessons have you learned since starting this venture?
Anthony, I have to apologize. I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback.
I know worries. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you at all. I mean, it's all static.
Interesting.
It went away. Nope, there. I can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yep, no static.
Cool. Yeah, you get a good microphone and it doesn't work, right? So, since you are an entrepreneurial organization, like what are some major lessons that you'd like to share with any of the guests or any of the listeners that you think is relevant?
I think that, the two I always rely on, to be honest with you, Anthony, are take the time to really outline who you are, what value you bring to, what value you bring to the world, what value you offer to your customers, and be really deliberate in articulating that. Now, I've lived it as an entrepreneur in a number of different businesses, and taking that time to really understand and internalize who you are and what value you offer to your customers is key, because that's really important to connecting with your own people and helping to spread that brand story. And the second piece is, we touched on it earlier, is listening to your people. Really building that dialogue with the people that are out there talking to your customers. Now, if you're a small organization, there's only a couple of you, you and your partners should be talking about, what you're hearing every day, what the feedback is. Again, use it as business intelligence. Use that feedback from customer conversations as business intelligence to figure out ways to optimize the conversation to be better. Most organizations don't put their people in a spot to be thinking critically about how they can be better every day and improving and optimizing. It's really important. The best way to do that is to start a dialogue. Asking questions is the best way to get somebody thinking critically. If you ever had a really good teacher or a good professor, how did they get you to think? They asked great questions. So that would be the other thing I would encourage people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the best way that I've found of coaching is not telling people, is actually asking them questions. So, well, awesome.
No question.
How can we get a hold of you? How can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out and connect with your team?
Sure. So website is interviewgroup.com. And again, it's INNERVIEW, interview, as in we take an interview of your organization. Interviewgroup.com is our company website. We can be contacted through that. If people want to connect with me personally, find me on LinkedIn. Now, my name, Christopher Wallace, it's a fairly common name. So I'm in Philadelphia. So look for the Chris Wallace in Philadelphia, and feel free to reach out. Happy to connect with folks.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on and providing your time.
Absolutely, Anthony. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
This concludes another episode of the Be Battle Ready podcast. If you're looking to put it all together across all the areas of your life and be battle ready, come get connected with powerful leaders in our Be Battle Ready Facebook group, where we will be dropping new battles to win each day.